you still haven't found yourself. At some point, the question stops sounding like a dramatic crisis and becomes something much quieter. It does not arrive with thunder. It does not wait for your life to completely fall apart. Often it appears in an ordinary moment in the middle of a normal day, while nothing around you looks unusual at all. You're brushing your teeth. You're sitting in traffic. You're opening another message you do not really want to answer. You're lying in bed with the lights off, staring at the ceiling, tired but strangely awake. Then a thought rises from somewhere you usually avoid. Who am I? Not what is my name, not what do I do for work, not what do people expect from me, not what role have I learned to play so I can move through the world without causing too many problems. A deeper question is hiding underneath. Who am I when I am not trying to be understood? Who am I when I am not trying to be useful? Who remains when I stop performing the version of myself that keeps everyone comfortable? That question can feel frightening because for many people, the answer is not clear. There may be memories, habits, opinions, ambitions, fears, and preferences, but they do not always feel like one whole person. They feel like fragments gathered over time, a piece from your family, a piece from school, a piece from rejection, a piece from social media, a piece from what hurt you, a piece from what once saved you. So when someone says, just be yourself, it can sound almost cruel. Which self? The self that learned to stay quiet so nobody would get angry? The one that jokes when things become too painful? The one that overachieves because rest feels like danger? The one that seems calm on the outside but is constantly scanning the room for disappointment? The one that wants more from life but feels guilty for wanting it? Most people are not lost because they lack intelligence. They are not confused because they fail to read enough books, listen to enough podcasts, or make enough vision boards. The deeper problem is usually this. They spent too many years adapting to environments where being fully honest did not feel safe. Adaptation is a brilliant survival skill. A child who can read the emotional weather of a home learns how to avoid storms. A teenager who senses rejection learns how to become more acceptable. An adult who has been disappointed enough may decide that needing less is safer than needing honestly. None of this begins as a plan to abandon yourself. It begins as protection. You say yes because saying no once caused tension. You act unbothered because being hurt made people call you dramatic. You hide excitement because someone once laughed at what mattered to you. You become responsible because chaos around you required someone to hold everything together. You become impressive because being ordinary felt invisible. Years pass, and what used to be protection turns into personality. The mask becomes familiar. The role becomes efficient. People praise the very thing that is exhausting you. They call you strong, but they do not see how tired you are. They call you easygoing, but they do not know how many opinions you swallow. They call you successful, but they cannot feel the emptiness that arrives after each achievement. They call you independent, while a hidden part of you still longs to be held without having to earn it. This is how a person can build a life that looks acceptable and still feel like a stranger inside it. The modern world makes this confusion worse because it constantly asks you to define yourself through performance. Every platform, workplace, relationship, and social circle quietly pushes the same question. What can you show us? Show us your success. Show us your confidence. Show us your beauty. Show us your productivity. Show us your healing. Show us your lifestyle. Show us that you are becoming something admirable. Very rarely does anyone ask, what feels true when nobody is rewarding you? A human being cannot stay connected to the self while living only for reflection. If every choice is made by imagining how it will look from the outside, the inner voice becomes faint. It stops giving clear answers, not because it disappeared, but because it was ignored for too long. Imagine knocking on a door for years and nobody opens. Eventually, you stop knocking loudly. That does not mean you no longer exist on the other side. It means you learned that speaking was useless. The real self often becomes quiet in exactly that way. People mistake this quietness for emptiness. They say, I have no personality, or I do not know what I like, or nothing feels like me anymore. Beneath those sentences is usually a long history of self-interruption. A desire appeared and fear corrected it. An emotion appeared and shame silenced it. A preference appeared and comparison made it look foolish. A dream appeared and practicality buried it before it had a chance to breathe. Little by little, the person learns to check the world before checking themselves. Will this be respected? Will this make me look strange? Will this disappoint someone? Will this be useful? Will this get approval? Will this make me lovable? After enough years of that, even simple choices become difficult. What do you want to eat? Where do you want to live? Who do you want close to you? What pace feels healthy? What kind of work gives energy instead of stealing it? Which dream is actually yours, and which one was handed to you by fear? The answers are not missing. They are buried under the reflex to please, prove, hide, and perform. Many people try to solve this with more thinking. They analyze their life from every angle. They make lists, they compare options, they research personality types, they ask friends, they watch videos at 2 a.m, hoping one sentence will unlock the whole maze. Thinking can help, but it can also become another way to avoid feeling. Identity is not found only in the mind. It lives in the body, in attraction, in resistance, in relief, in grief, in anger, in the subtle sense that something is either expanding you or shrinking you. The body often knows before the intellect is ready to admit. Notice how your chest tightens around certain people. Notice how your energy drops after conversations where you must edit every sentence. Notice the strange sadness that follows a day spent doing what should make you happy. Notice the small spark that appears around topics you keep returning to for no practical reason. Notice how peace feels unfamiliar when chaos has been home for too long. These signals are not random. They are messages from the parts of you that did not get invited into the official story of your life. Of course, not every discomfort means something is wrong. Growth can be uncomfortable. Commitment can be uncomfortable. Discipline can be uncomfortable. Love can be uncomfortable when you're used to distance. The point is not to obey every feeling blindly. The point is to stop dismissing every feeling automatically. A person who cannot find themselves usually has a long habit of self-dismissal. They feel sadness and immediately say, "Other people have it worse." They feel anger and quickly decide, "I should be more mature." They feel tired and accuse themselves of laziness. They feel loneliness and call themselves needy. They feel uncertainty and label it failure. When every feeling is put on trial, the inner world becomes a courtroom. Nothing can simply be heard. Everything must defend its right to exist. No one can discover themselves in that atmosphere. A good therapist would not begin by attacking the feeling. A good therapist would ask what the feeling protects, what memory it carries, what need is hidden inside it, and why it has chosen this exact moment to appear. You can begin treating yourself with that kind of curiosity. Curiosity is not weakness. It is not indulgence. It is one of the most disciplined forms of honesty. It requires you to pause before judgment, to look beneath the surface, to admit that your reactions may contain wisdom even when they are inconvenient. Shame asks, "What is wrong with me?" Curiosity asks, "What happened here?" Shame demands a mask. Curiosity opens a door. This distinction matters because many people do not actually search for themselves. They search for a version of themselves that would finally be impossible to reject. They imagine that if they become confident enough, attractive enough, successful enough, calm enough, spiritual enough, disciplined enough, interesting enough, then nobody will leave, criticize, ignore, or misunderstand them. That fantasy is powerful. It looks like ambition, but underneath it is often fear. The fear says, "If I become the right person, I will finally be safe." So the search for identity becomes another performance. A person builds a better mask and calls it growth. They chase improvement not because they love their life, but because they secretly believe the current version of them does not deserve tenderness. This is why self-improvement can become exhausting. The habits may be healthy, yet the emotional engine underneath is punishment. You work harder, but not from devotion. You exercise, but not from care. You read, study, build, and plan, but the silent message remains. Become someone else before you can rest. A life built on that message may look impressive, but it rarely feels peaceful. Finding yourself does not begin with becoming more impressive. It begins with becoming more honest. Honesty is less glamorous than transformation. It does not always create a clean before and after story. Sometimes it begins with a sentence you barely want to say. I chose this because everyone approved of it. I am not happy in the place I fought so hard to reach. I do not know whether this dream is mine anymore. I am lonely around people who know my schedule, but not my soul. I keep calling it peace, but it is actually numbness. I keep calling it love, but it might be fear of being alone. I keep calling myself unmotivated, but maybe I am exhausted from living a life that does not fit. These are not pleasant realizations. Still, they are powerful because they return you to reality. A false life can only continue while truth remains unspoken. Once truth enters the room, even quietly, something begins to shift. Not everything has to change immediately. Panic often tries to turn awakening into destruction. It says, quit everything, leave everyone, move away, start over tonight. There are times when big changes are necessary. But many dramatic exits are not courage. They are anxiety trying to escape the discomfort of gradual honesty. Real self-discovery is usually less cinematic. It may look like giving a truthful answer instead of the convenient one. It may mean spending one evening alone without filling the silence. Perhaps it means admitting that a friendship has become a performance. Maybe the first step is choosing something small because you actually like it, not because it supports an identity. The self returns through small acts of loyalty. Every honest no brings a piece of you back. Every sincere yes does the same. Each time you pause before betraying your own nervous system, a forgotten part of you learns that it might be safe to speak again. This process is slow because the full self was not created in a day. It was trained through repetition. It was rewarded, reinforced, and sometimes necessary. You cannot shame it into disappearing. That false self helped you survive certain rooms, certain people, certain seasons of life. It deserves gratitude, not worship. There comes a time to say, thank you for protecting me. You were built for a situation I am no longer willing to recreate. The role of the strong one may have protected you from feeling helpless. The role of the funny one may have protected you from being pitied. The role of the caretaker may have protected you from abandonment. The role of the achiever may have protected you from shame. The role of the independent one may have protected you from disappointment. Those roles are not enemies. They are old strategies. The problem begins when an old strategy becomes a permanent identity. A strategy should serve life. It should not replace it. To understand why you cannot find yourself, look at the roles you are praised for. Praise can be revealing. Sometimes people admire exactly what costs you the most. If everyone praises your reliability, ask whether you are allowed to have limits. If they admire your calmness, ask whether your anger has any place to go. If your independence impresses people, ask whether anyone knows when you are scared. If being low maintenance made you lovable, ask how many needs you buried to keep that title. The places where you are overpraised may also be the places where you are overused. This is not a reason to blame everyone around you. Many people respond to the version you trained them to expect. If you have spent years saying, "It is fine," they may believe you. If you never ask for help, others may assume you do not need it. If you laugh through pain, someone who lacks depth may mistake the laughter for peace. At the same time, a mature life requires the courage to update the contract. You may need to teach people a more honest version of you. Not everyone will welcome that version. Some relationships are built around your self-abandonment. They work only as long as you stay convenient. When you develop boundaries, those relationships may accuse you of changing, becoming selfish, acting distant, or being difficult. Their discomfort does not automatically mean you are wrong. A person who benefited from your silence may experience your voice as aggression. A person who depended on your overgiving may call your boundaries cold. Someone who liked your mask may not know how to love your face. This is one of the hidden costs of finding yourself. You may disappoint people who preferred you unfinished. That sentence hurts because belonging is a basic human need. We are not machines designed to stand alone without consequence. The nervous system cares about acceptance because, at some level, rejection has always felt like danger. So when self-honesty threatens belonging, the body may panic. A voice inside may say, "Do not risk it. Stay who they know. Keep the peace. Be grateful. Do not ask for too much. Do not become complicated." This is why growth can feel like betrayal, even when it is actually repair. You are not betraying people by becoming honest. You are betraying yourself by remaining false only to be easier to handle. Still, compassion is needed. No one becomes real all at once. The nervous system needs evidence that honesty will not destroy everything. It needs small, repeated experiences of surviving truth. You tell someone, "I cannot do that tonight," and the world does not end. You admit, "That hurt me," and even if the other person reacts poorly, you remain alive. You choose rest without earning it first, and the old guilt rises, then slowly passes. You spend time with your own thoughts and discover that silence is uncomfortable but not lethal. These moments seem small. Psychologically, they are huge. They teach the inner self that it does not have to vanish to stay safe. Another reason people struggle to find themselves is comparison. Not simple envy, but the constant unconscious measurement that makes your own life feel invalid. Comparison steals identity because it trains attention away from internal truth and toward social ranking. Instead of asking, "What is meaningful to me?" the mind asks, "Am I behind them?" Instead of sensing what fits your temperament, you evaluate whether your path looks impressive enough from the outside. This is especially brutal in a culture where everyone is encouraged to become a brand. Even pain becomes content, healing becomes an aesthetic, productivity becomes a personality, success becomes a public performance. The ordinary rhythms of being human start to feel embarrassing. A quiet life can look like failure beside curated intensity. Someone else's highlight becomes your evidence against yourself. Their relationship makes you question your worth. Their career makes your progress seem invisible. Their confidence makes your uncertainty feel defective. Their apparent clarity makes your own confusion feel like proof that you are broken. But you are comparing your full inner weather to someone else's edited window. No one posts the entire cost of becoming who they appear to be. You do not see the fear behind the achievement, the emptiness after the applause, the loneliness inside the beautiful room, the compromises behind the impressive title, the private doubt behind the public certainty. Even when someone truly has something good, it may not be good for you. A life can be beautiful and still not be yours. That line matters. A path does not have to be bad for you to refuse it. A dream does not have to be stupid for it to belong to someone else. A relationship does not have to be terrible for it to feel misaligned. A job does not have to be shameful for your soul to slowly disappear inside it. Maturity includes the ability to say, "That is good, but not mine." Without that ability, you will chase borrowed futures. You will collect goals that look right but feel strangely hollow. You will keep arriving at milestones and wondering why the satisfaction fades so quickly. The answer is simple and painful. Applause cannot nourish a self that was never involved in the choice. You cannot feel fulfilled by achieving a dream you adopted to become acceptable. The nervous system knows the difference between success and alignment. Success may bring excitement, relief, pride, or status. Alignment brings something quieter, a sense of returning, a feeling that the inner and outer life are no longer enemies. Finding yourself means learning that difference. There are moments when alignment looks unimpressive. It may not photograph well. It may not make people jealous. It may not sound ambitious at a dinner table. Yet your body softens around it. Your attention deepens. Your breathing changes. A part of you stops clenching. Do not underestimate that. Peace is easy to dismiss when you are addicted to intensity. Many people confuse anxiety with passion because anxiety is loud. It creates urgency, obsession, fantasy, and dramatic emotional highs. Peace, by contrast, can feel almost boring at first. If chaos shaped your nervous system, calm may feel suspicious. A steady relationship may seem less exciting than an unavailable person. A sustainable path may feel less meaningful than a crisis. A gentle friendship may seem less powerful than a bond built on emotional extremes. This does not mean calm is empty. It may mean your system has not learned how to recognize safety. The self cannot fully emerge in constant emergency. Survival narrows identity. Under stress, the brain prioritizes protection, not exploration. It asks how to get through the day, how to avoid rejection, how to prevent collapse, how to keep functioning. Questions like, "Who am I?" and "What do I deeply want?" require enough safety for the mind to become spacious. That is why some people only begin to feel lost after life becomes more stable. During chaos, there was no time to ask. The mission was survival. Once the noise decreases, the neglected self finally has room to speak, and its first words may be grief. Grief is often present in self-discovery. You may grieve the years spent performing. Grieve the version of you that never got protected. Grieve the dreams you abandoned before testing them. Grieve the relationships where being loved required becoming smaller. Grieve the childhood where no one asked who you were becoming because everyone was busy needing you to become useful. This grief does not mean you are moving backward. It means numbness is thawing. A frozen person may look functional. They go to work, answer messages, smile, make plans, complete tasks. Inside, life feels distant, like watching everything through glass. Numbness can be mistaken for peace because it is quiet, but peace is alive. Numbness is absence. Peace allows feeling. Numbness avoids it. Peace is spacious. Numbness is flat. Peace restores energy. Numbness preserves survivor. If you cannot find yourself, ask whether you have confused numbness with stability. Perhaps nothing excites you because excitement was unsafe. Perhaps desire disappeared because desire led to disappointment. Perhaps you cannot choose because every choice used to be criticized. Perhaps joy feels childish because you were forced to become serious too early. The adult mind often judges symptoms without understanding their origin. I am lazy. Maybe you are depleted. I am indecisive. Maybe you were punished for having preferences. I am cold. Maybe closeness once came with control. I am too sensitive. Maybe your body is accurately reading what your mind learned to minimize. I do not know who I am. Maybe no one gave you enough room to become. This does not remove responsibility. Understanding yourself is not a permission slip to remain stuck forever. It simply changes the starting point. You cannot heal what you keep insulting. You cannot guide a person you refuse to understand, even when that person is you. Responsibility without compassion becomes brutality. Compassion without responsibility becomes avoidance. A healthy life requires both. You can say, "It makes sense that I became this way," and also say, "I do not want to keep living from this pattern." You can honor what protected you while choosing something truer now. You can stop blaming yourself and still begin changing. That balance is rare, but it is where real growth lives. One of the biggest myths about identity is that you are supposed to find one permanent answer. As if one day you will discover your true self like a hidden object under a bed, pick it up and never feel confused again. Human beings are not fixed objects, they are living systems. A self is not a statue, it is more like a conversation between memory, desire, values, fear, body, imagination, relationships, and time. You do not find yourself once, you return to yourself repeatedly. Different seasons reveal different truths. The person you were at 19 may have wanted intensity because intensity proved existence. The person you become at 30 may want peace because peace becomes precious. Later, creativity may matter more than status. Then service may matter more than recognition. Then freedom may matter more than certainty. Changing does not always mean you were fake before. Sometimes it means you are alive. The fear of being inconsistent keeps many people trapped in outdated identities. They think, "But I used to want this," or "Everyone knows me as that kind of person," or "I have already invested too much time." Sunk cost is not a soul contract. Just because you spent years building a life around one version of yourself does not mean that version gets to own the rest of your existence. Gratitude for the past does not require obedience to it. You are allowed to outgrow an old dream without calling it a mistake. You are allowed to change direction without turning your former self into an enemy. You are allowed to admit that something once true no longer fits. The deeper question is not, "Was I wrong before?" The better question is, "What is honest now?" That word, honest, is more useful than perfect. Perfect keeps you frozen. Honest gives you the next step. People who feel lost often wait for perfect clarity before moving. They want a complete map, guaranteed outcomes, emotional certainty, and a future self who promises they will never regret anything. Since life rarely offers that, they remain suspended. Clarity usually comes after contact, not before. You learn by trying, noticing, adjusting, and trying again. A person discovers their taste by tasting. They discover their values by making choices and observing the cost. They discover their boundaries by feeling where resentment begins. They discover their voice by speaking imperfectly and surviving the sound of it. Waiting to know yourself completely before living is like waiting to become strong before lifting anything. The knowing grows through participation. This is why isolation can both help and harm. Time alone is necessary when you have been overexposed to other people's expectations. Solitude allows your own signal to become audible. Without silence, many people cannot tell the difference between desire and pressure. Yet, endless isolation can become another trap. Identity also forms in contact. Relationships reveal patterns, tenderness, fear, generosity, envy, longing, and courage. Other people can mirror parts of you that you cannot see alone. The goal is not to disappear from the world. It is to stop letting the world be louder than your own truth. A healthy solitude asks, what do I feel when nobody is influencing me? An unhealthy isolation says, no one can hurt me if I never need anyone. Those are different. Some people claim they are finding themselves when they are actually protecting themselves from intimacy. They reject every attachment, every compromise, every request, every emotional risk, and call it freedom. Real freedom does not require emotional exile. To know yourself deeply, you must also observe who you become near others. Who makes you perform? Who makes you soften? Who turns you into a caretaker? Who brings out your honesty? Who makes you feel like you must earn the right to exist? Who allows your nervous system to rest? Pay attention. Your identity is not only inside you, it is also shaped by the environments where you spend your energy. A seed may contain life, but soil still matters. Put a sensitive person in a mocking environment, and they may become sarcastic, guarded, or silent. Put that same person near warmth, and they may become expressive, creative, and generous. Neither version is fake. One is defended, the other is safer. Before concluding that you have no self, examine the rooms where your self keeps disappearing. Maybe you are not empty. Maybe you are surrounded by conditions that require emptiness. Workplaces can do this, families can do this, friend groups can do this, relationships can do this, online spaces can do this. Any environment that rewards your mask and punishes your truth will eventually make you feel unreal. The body keeps score in quiet ways. You dread certain calls. You procrastinate on tasks that violate your values. You become irritated by people you keep overgiving to. You lose your appetite for things you once enjoyed. You feel heavy before entering rooms where the performance begins. Do not treat these signs as meaningless. They are not always commands, but they are data. A wise life is built by listening to data without becoming enslaved by impulse. Ask, what is this reaction showing me? Is it old fear or present truth? Is my body warning me or am I avoiding growth? What pattern keeps repeating? Where do I feel most false? Where do I feel most free? These questions are better than, what is wrong with me? They create movement. Another layer of identity comes from values. Many people think values are abstract words printed on a page. Honesty, freedom, love, creativity, security, growth. Nice concepts, easy to admire, harder to live. Your real values are not what you say matters. They are what you protect with your choices. If you say freedom matters, but every decision is built around approval, approval may currently be ruling your life. If peace matters, but you keep choosing chaos because chaos feels familiar, then familiarity may be stronger than peace. If creativity matters, but you never give it time unless someone can praise it, recognition may be louder than creativity. This is not a reason for self-attack. It is an invitation to see the gap between declared values and lived values. That gap is where much of the lost feeling comes from. A person can survive for years in contradiction, but they rarely feel whole there. One part of them wants authenticity, another part keeps choosing acceptance. One part wants rest, another part worships productivity. One part wants intimacy, another part chooses emotionally unavailable people to avoid the vulnerability of being truly seen. The psyche does not enjoy internal war. Eventually, symptoms appear. Tiredness without a clear cause, irritability that seems too intense, anxiety around decisions, envy toward people who seem free, difficulty feeling joy, a strange sense that time is passing but life has not begun. These symptoms may not be proof that you are failing. They may be invitations from the parts of you that are tired of being overruled. To find yourself, begin with one value you are willing to protect in a small, concrete way. If honesty matters, tell one cleaner truth this week. If peace matters, remove one unnecessary source of chaos. If creativity matters, create something without turning it into content. If dignity matters, stop begging for warmth from people who consistently give you confusion. If health matters, listen to your body before it has to become louder. If freedom matters, make one choice that is not designed to impress anyone. Identity strengthens through evidence. Each choice teaches the nervous system, this is what we protect now. Over time, the self becomes less theoretical. You stop needing a dramatic definition because your life begins to express your values. Not perfectly, not every day, but enough that you can recognize yourself in your own behavior. That recognition is important. Many people cannot find themselves because their daily behavior contradicts their inner truth so often that they stop trusting themselves. Every time they abandon a boundary, choose approval over honesty, numb a feeling, or delay a meaningful action, they send the psyche a message: I will not protect you. Then they wonder why confidence disappears. Confidence is not only positive thinking, it is self-trust built through repeated self-alignment. You trust yourself when you do what you said you would do. You trust yourself when you tell the truth, even softly. You trust yourself when you stop negotiating with situations that keep injuring you. You trust yourself when your inner yes and outer yes begin to match. A person who constantly betrays themselves may still look confident, but internally they feel unstable. Their mind knows they are not safe with themselves yet. This is why the journey back to identity often begins with small promises. Not huge declarations, not a complete reinvention. Small promises that you can actually keep. I will not laugh at myself when I am hurting. I will take 10 minutes of silence before saying yes. I will stop explaining my needs to people committed to misunderstanding them. I will create before I consume. I will notice resentment before it becomes bitterness. I will treat tiredness as information, not a moral failure. Small promises matter because they rebuild the relationship between you and you. That relationship is the foundation of identity. Without it, you may keep asking other people who you are. You may look for identity in romance, status, family approval, audience reaction, spiritual labels, political tribes, or productivity systems. Anything that offers a ready-made self can feel tempting when your inner relationship is weak. Groups can give belonging, teachers can give language, love can give reflection, work can give structure. None of these should become a substitute for your own inner authority. Inner authority does not mean arrogance. It means the ability to consult yourself before outsourcing your life. It means you can receive advice without surrendering discernment. You can love people without becoming their emotional property. You can respect tradition without allowing it to bury your nature. You can belong to a community without amputating parts of yourself to remain acceptable there. This is difficult because many people were rewarded for lacking inner authority. They were praised for obedience, agreeableness, emotional control, and being easy. They learned to make decisions by asking, "What will keep me loved?" instead of, "What is true and responsible?" The shift from approval to integrity can feel lonely at first. Approval offers quick relief. Integrity offers deeper peace, but sometimes after a delay. Approval says, "They like me right now." Integrity says, "I can live with myself afterward." A life built around approval requires constant maintenance. A life built around integrity requires courage. Neither is effortless, but only one allows you to feel real. There may be a younger part of you that still believes love depends on performance. That part may panic when you stop overgiving, over-explaining, or overachieving. It may whisper that everything will be taken away if you become honest. Do not mock that fear. It likely has a history. Somewhere, honesty may have cost you closeness. Anger may have cost you approval. Need may have cost you dignity. Joy may have invited ridicule. Rest may have been called laziness. Uniqueness may have been treated as inconvenience. The psyche remembers. Healing means showing those younger parts that the present is not always the past. Not by forcing them to believe it, but by offering repeated evidence. One calm boundary, one safe friendship, one truthful conversation, one creative act done without shame, one evening where you rest and nothing terrible happens, one choice made from self-respect instead of fear. Over time, the inner world begins to update. This is why patience is not optional. You cannot rush a nervous system into trust. You can only become consistent enough that trust becomes reasonable. The world may pressure you to declare a grand purpose. Many videos, books, and speeches make it sound as if everyone needs one massive mission. Find your purpose, find your passion, find your calling, build your legacy. For some people, that language inspires. For others, it creates paralysis. When you are disconnected from yourself, find your purpose can feel like being asked to name a destination while standing in fog. A gentler question may help more. What feels worth caring about today? Not forever, today. What pain in the world still reaches you? What beauty still moves you? What subject keeps pulling your attention? What problem makes you want to understand more? What kind of person do you become when you stop trying to win and start paying attention? Purpose is often discovered through care, not pressure. You notice what you cannot stop caring about. You follow the thread. You give it time. You test it in reality. The path becomes clearer through contact. Passion does not always arrive as fireworks. Sometimes it begins as quiet curiosity, a small pull, a repeated interest, a question that stays alive. Many people ignore these subtle signs because they expect purpose to feel dramatic. The soul often speaks in whispers before it speaks in certainty. If you dismiss every whisper, do not be surprised when life feels silent. Start listening to what returns. The book you keep thinking about, the skill you keep wanting to try, the place that makes your body soften, the kind of conversation that makes time disappear, the injustice that makes you angry in a clean, focused way, the creative impulse you keep postponing because it seems impractical. These may not reveal your entire future, but they reveal direction. Direction is enough for now. The lost person often demands the whole map. A healing person learns to follow the next honest step. This is not passivity, it is grounded movement. Life rarely gives complete certainty, but it often gives enough information for one sincere action. Take the class, make the call, write the page, leave the room, ask the question, set the limit. Try the thing privately before announcing it publicly. Give yourself real evidence instead of endless fantasy. Fantasy can become another trap for people who feel lost. In fantasy, the future self is clean, admired, healed, and certain. The fantasy self has no awkward beginnings, no mediocre first attempts, no fear, no confusion, no slow progress. Because fantasy contains no friction, it becomes addictive. Real life, however, asks for clumsy participation. You may have to be bad at something before it becomes yours. You may have to disappoint your own image of who you should be. You may have to choose a beginner's humility over the comfort of never trying. This is hard for people whose identity was built around competence. If you were loved for being smart, talented, mature, or capable, being a beginner can feel like humiliation. Yet, the unlived self is usually hiding behind the activities you refuse to be bad at. What would you try if you did not need to look gifted? What would you say if you did not need to sound impressive? Where would you go if nobody had to understand immediately? Who might you become if embarrassment stopped being a prison? The fear of looking foolish has buried many authentic lives. Sometimes finding yourself requires letting yourself be seen in an unfinished state. Not by everyone, not recklessly, but somewhere. A person cannot become real while demanding total dignity at every step. Growth is often awkward. Honesty may tremble. New boundaries may sound clumsy.
Early creative work may be uneven. A first attempt at vulnerability may come out messy. That does not make it false. It makes it human. Human is what many people are secretly trying to escape. They want to become beyond need, beyond doubt, beyond loneliness, beyond jealousy, beyond grief. They imagine that the true self is calm, wise, productive, attractive, and emotionally regulated at all times. That is not a self. That is a fantasy of invulnerability. Your real self includes contradictions. You can want closeness and fear it. You can love someone and need distance. You can be grateful and still desire change. You can be strong and tired. You can forgive and still need boundaries. You can be healing and still have old reactions. Wholeness is not the absence of contradiction. It is the ability to hold your inner complexity without splitting yourself into acceptable and unacceptable pieces. When people cannot tolerate complexity, they keep performing simplicity. They choose one label and hide everything that does not match it. The strong one hides fear. The kind one hides anger. The ambitious one hides exhaustion. The spiritual one hides envy. The independent one hides longing. The logical one hides heartbreak. Eventually, the hidden parts begin asking for attention through symptoms. A dream, a panic attack, a sudden resentment, a numb morning, a strained attraction, a repeated conflict, a body that refuses to keep pretending. The psyche is always trying to move toward wholeness. It will not remain silent forever. You may think your confusion is the enemy, but sometimes confusion is what happens when an old identity is breaking down and a more honest one has not fully formed. It is the hallway between roles, the fog between a false certainty and a real question. Do not worship confusion, but do not panic because of it. Confusion can be fertile. It invites you to slow down, examine assumptions, and stop living on autopilot. The confused person is not always lost. Sometimes they are finally refusing to lie. Certainty can be dangerous when it belongs to a false self. A person can be absolutely certain about a life that is slowly killing their spirit. They can repeat the plan, defend the role, chase the goal, and silence every sign of misalignment because certainty feels safer than truth. So perhaps the question is not why you are uncertain. Perhaps the question is why you needed certainty so badly that you ignored yourself for years. Certainty offers control. Identity offers relationship. Control wants fixed answers. Relationship requires listening. Your relationship with yourself must be renewed again and again. That renewal can begin in ordinary ways. Before reaching for your phone in the morning, ask what mood is already in the room. Before agreeing to something, ask whether your yes is honest or just automatic. Before judging your lack of energy, ask where your energy has been leaking. Before calling yourself lost, Ask what you are afraid would happen if you became more real. Small questions asked consistently can change a life. They interrupt the trance. The trance says, keep going, do not feel, do not question. Everyone else seems to know what they are doing. You are behind. Hurry up. Become acceptable. A deeper voice says, slow down. Look carefully. Something here deserves your attention. The deeper voice does not usually scream. It waits. It returns. It keeps leaving clues. One clue is envy. Most people treat envy as something ugly, and it can become ugly when denied or projected. But understood properly, envy can be informative. It often points toward a desire you have not given yourself permission to own. When someone else's freedom irritates you, maybe a caged part of you is speaking. When someone else's creativity makes you bitter, perhaps your own creativity has been neglected. When another person's honesty feels threatening, maybe you have been swallowing truth for too long. Do not use envy to attack people. Use it to locate hunger. Ask, what does this person seem to have that I have forbidden myself from wanting? The answer may surprise you. It might not be their money, beauty, relationship, or recognition. It may be their permission, their aliveness, their refusal to apologize for existing, their ability to choose without explaining every detail. Envy, when approached with maturity, can become a map. So can resentment. Resentment often grows where a boundary was missing. It appears when you keep giving more than is honest, saying yes when you mean no, carrying responsibilities that were never yours, or pretending not to mind what you deeply mind. Instead of immediately judging resentment, ask what agreement your body no longer accepts. Maybe you agreed to be available at all times. Maybe you agreed to be the emotional container for everyone else. Maybe you agreed to stay in a role because changing would upset the family system. Maybe you agreed to make your life smaller so someone else would not feel insecure. Resentment says a contract needs to be reviewed. That review does not have to be cruel. It has to be honest. Another clue is admiration. Notice what you admire when nobody is telling you to admire it. Not what looks prestigious, but what genuinely moves something inside you. Courage, tenderness, discipline, artistry, simplicity, depth, kindness, solitude, devotion, humor, resilience, elegance, rebellion, wisdom. Admiration reveals values. The qualities you consistently admire may be qualities asking to be developed or honored within you, not copied, honored. The goal is not to become someone else. It is to understand what your attention is trying to teach you. Attention is never neutral. Over time, it forms a pattern. What you return to matters. Some people are afraid to notice their real interests because they worry those interests will not be profitable, respected, or practical. So they force themselves to care about things that make sense on paper and wonder why motivation keeps disappearing. Motivation is hard to sustain when the soul is not included. Discipline can carry you for a while. Fear can carry you too. So can shame, competition, and survival. But a life cannot feel deeply alive if everything meaningful has been excluded because it did not seem useful enough. Usefulness is not the only measure of value. Some things matter because they make you feel human again. A walk without content. Music that reaches a place words cannot. A conversation where nobody is performing. A craft done badly but sincerely. A room arranged with care. A book that makes your private pain feel less lonely. A quiet morning where your nervous system remembers that life is more than output. These things may not look like ambition, yet they restore identity. You are not only a machine for goals. When a person forgets that, they begin to disappear into usefulness. Their worth becomes tied to what they produce, solve, provide, or achieve. Rest feels suspicious. Pleasure feels irresponsible. Play feels childish. Silence feels like wasted time. But the self needs unproductive spaces. Without them, only the functional parts remain online. The dreaming parts go quiet. The playful parts withdraw. The tender parts hide. The intuitive parts become harder to hear. A culture obsessed with productivity will call this laziness. A psychologist might call it recovery of the person behind the role. There is a difference between avoidance and restoration. Avoidance leaves you duller afterward. Restoration makes you more available to life. Avoidance is running from truth. Restoration gives you the strength to face it. Avoidance numbs. Restoration nourishes. Learn the difference by observing the aftertaste. After scrolling for hours, do you feel rested or hollow? After time with certain people, do you feel connected or subtly erased? After work that looked productive, do you feel satisfied or merely relieved that you performed well enough to avoid shame? The aftertaste tells the truth. Many people ignore it because the truth would require adjustment. Adjustment costs comfort. It may ask you to change habits, confront relationships, reconsider goals, or admit that your current life is organized around the wrong center. The wrong center is often fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being ordinary, fear of being too much, fear of being too late, fear of needing people, fear of losing control, fear of becoming like someone you once judged, fear of disappointing the image others have built around you. A life centered on fear may be organized, impressive, and predictable. It will not feel free. Freedom is not doing whatever you want without consequence. Freedom is being able to choose from truth rather than compulsion. A fearful choice says, I must do this or I will not be safe. A truthful choice says, this may be difficult, but it aligns with the person I am becoming. That difference can be felt in the body. Fear often tightens. Truth may scare you too, but it carries a sense of clean energy. It feels like stepping toward something, not merely running from punishment. When you cannot find yourself, begin separating fear from truth. Ask, am I choosing this because it is honest, or because I am trying to avoid someone's disappointment? Am I staying because love is present, or because loneliness scares me? Am I leaving because the situation is wrong,
or because intimacy is asking too much of my defenses? Am I chasing this goal because it matters, or because I want proof that I am not worthless? These questions require courage because the answers may complicate your life.
Truth often complicates before it liberates. That is why many people prefer the numb version. It is painful but predictable. Authenticity introduces uncertainty. Once you admit what is real, you cannot unknow it. Even if you delay action, something inside has changed. A more honest life begins the moment denial loses authority. You may still be afraid. You may still be unsure. You may not know the final shape of your future. Yet you are no longer fully asleep. That awakening deserves respect. Do not measure it only by visible results. Some of the most important changes happen privately, long before anyone else notices. The first time you do not apologize for having a boundary. The first time you let silence exist without rushing to entertain someone. The first time you realize an old criticism no longer defines you. The first time you choose peace even though drama feels familiar. The first time you admit that your life needs more tenderness, not more pressure. These are quiet revolutions. They do not always look dramatic, but they change the direction of a life. Another important piece is forgiveness, though not the shallow kind people use to silence pain. Real forgiveness, including toward yourself, is not pretending the past did not matter. It is releasing the fantasy that hatred will give back what was lost. Many people cannot find themselves because they are still secretly arguing with old rooms. A parent who never understood them, a teacher who humiliated them, a friend who betrayed them, a lover who made them feel replaceable, a younger self who did not know how to choose differently. The argument continues internally. You replay scenes, you prepare speeches, you imagine being seen at last. You try to become successful enough that the old rejection will finally reverse itself. But a life built as a response to people who hurt you still belongs to them. At some point, the question becomes, do I want to win an old argument, or do I want to live? Winning may look like proving them wrong. Living may require becoming free from the need to prove anything to them at all. That freedom does not arrive through denial. It arrives when grief has been honored, anger has been understood, and the self begins to choose a future that is not organized around an old wound. You can let the wound inform you without letting it govern you. Perhaps rejection taught you compassion. Perhaps loneliness taught you depth. Perhaps failure taught you humility. Perhaps betrayal taught you discernment. These lessons matter. Still, the wound should not be the only author of your identity. You are more than what happened to you. That sentence is easy to say and difficult to embody. Trauma, disappointment, and chronic shame can narrow the sense of self until a person becomes organized around defense. Their personality becomes a security system. Every room is scanned, every word is analyzed, every connection is tested, every dream is evaluated for danger before desire is allowed to exist. Living this way is exhausting. No wonder you feel lost. A security system does not create a home, it only prevents invasion. Eventually, you need more than protection.
You need presence, warmth, meaning, play, trust, agency, a reason to wake up that is not merely avoiding collapse. Finding yourself means asking what life would look like if protection were no longer the only goal. What would you build if you were not constantly defending? How would you love if you were not always preparing for abandonment? What would you create if being judged no longer had the final vote? Where would your energy go if shame stopped taxing every movement? These questions may feel impossible at first. That is fine. Let them exist. You do not have to answer immediately. Sometimes a powerful question needs to live in you before it opens.
The mind may demand instant clarity, but the deeper self moves at the speed of trust. Trust grows when you stop using yourself as an enemy. Consider how often people speak to themselves with a cruelty they would never use toward a friend. They call themselves pathetic, lazy, stupid, dramatic, broken, behind, unattractive, hopeless. Then they wonder why motivation disappears. No living thing grows well under constant contempt. This does not mean lying to yourself with empty positivity. You do not need to stand in front of a mirror and pretend everything is wonderful. Respectful honesty is enough. I am struggling, and I am still worthy of care. I made a mistake, and I can repair it. I feel lost, and that does not make me defective. I am not where I want to be, but attacking myself will not take me there faster. A calm inner voice is not a luxury. It is a psychological environment. The parts of you that carry truth will not come forward if they expect humiliation. They need to know that even difficult feelings will be met with steadiness. This is where many people misunderstand confidence. Confidence is not constant certainty. Often, it is the knowledge that you can meet your own experience without abandoning yourself. You can feel fear and stay present. You can feel shame and not obey it. You can feel desire and not immediately bury it. You can feel confusion and keep listening. That is a stronger foundation than pretending to be fearless. The question, "Who am I?" may not need one final answer. Maybe it is better treated as a relationship question, like asking someone you love, "What is happening inside you lately?" The answer changes. The listening continues. Today you may discover that you are tired. Tomorrow that you are angry. Next month that you want a different kind of work. Later that you need deeper friendships. At some point that you are more creative than you allowed. At another point that you are not as broken as you were taught to believe. Each discovery matters. Do not dismiss a truth because it is not the whole truth. A single honest preference can be the beginning of a life. A single boundary can change a relationship. A single creative hour can reopen a part of you that has been asleep for years. A single act of self-respect can reveal how much pain you accepted as normal. The return to yourself is not one grand revelation. It is a series of recoveries. You recover your no. You recover your yes. You recover your anger. You recover your tenderness. You recover your boredom, which tells you where life has gone stale. You recover your envy, which points toward buried desire. You recover your grief, which proves you loved something. You recover your play, which reminds you that existence is not only a test. Eventually, you begin to feel less like a collection of performances and more like a person. Not a perfect person, not a finished person, a real one. Being real may cost you some illusions. You may lose the fantasy that everyone can approve of you. You may outgrow the dream of being endlessly understood. You may accept that some people will misread your boundaries, judge your timing, or prefer the older version of you. That loss hurts, but it also frees energy. Energy once spent on managing perception can return to living. Energy once spent on suppressing feelings can become creativity. Energy once spent on chasing unavailable approval can become devotion to what is actually present. A more authentic life is not always easier. It is less divided. That is the gift. You no longer need to leave yourself at the door of every room. You no longer need to laugh when something injures you. You no longer need to call exhaustion ambition or numbness peace. You no longer need to confuse being chosen with being known. There is a particular sadness in being loved for a mask. The attention may feel good for a moment, but the real self remains lonely because it knows it was not the one being held. This is why some people feel lonely even while surrounded. They are receiving connection, but only the performed version is participating. The hidden self watches from a distance and thinks, if they knew the truth, would they stay? A life of masks produces crowded loneliness. To be known, you must risk being seen, not all at once, not by unsafe people. Discernment matters. Vulnerability without discernment is not healing. It can become self-exposure in the wrong rooms. The goal is not to hand your inner world to anyone who asks. The goal is to stop hiding from yourself and to choose relationships where truth has room. Safe people do not require you to be simple. They can hear discomfort without punishing it. They can meet boundaries without turning them into accusations. They can witness uncertainty without rushing to control you. They may not understand everything, but they respect the reality of your inner life. Spend more time where your nervous system does not have to become a diplomat. That alone can change what you believe about yourself. Some people think they are cold, but they have been surrounded by unsafe warmth. Some think they are boring, but they have spent years hiding in judgmental rooms. Some think they are too intense, but they have only been close to people who prefer shallow water. The right environment does not create a fake self. It allows a buried self to breathe. Look for the places, people, and practices that make you more honest without making you more ashamed. That is a clue. If you are wondering how to begin tonight, begin small enough that the mind cannot turn it into another performance. Take a piece of paper and write 3 sentences, not for anyone else. I have been pretending that the truth I keep avoiding is. One small way I can stop abandoning myself is do not make it beautiful. Do not make it wise. Make it honest. The first answers may be defensive. Keep going. Beneath the polished explanation is usually a simpler truth. Maybe the truth is, I am tired. Maybe it is, I miss who I was before I became so careful. Maybe it is, I do not want to be admired as much as I want to be known. Maybe it is,
I have been waiting for permission to live differently. Maybe it is, I am scared that if I stop performing, there will be nothing left. If that last fear appears, listen gently. There will be something left. At first, it may be quiet, awkward, unsure, not yet shaped into a clear identity. That does not mean it is nothing. It means it has been underground. A seed under soil does not look like a forest. The early self often returns without confidence. It returns as curiosity, irritation, tears, relief, boredom, strange excitement, or sudden resistance to things you used to tolerate. Welcome those signs carefully.
They may be the first movements of life after a long winter. Do not demand that the returning self explain its entire plan. Let it speak one sentence at a time. I do not like this. I want to try that. I need rest. That person does not feel safe. This conversation feels real. I miss creating. I want a slower life. I want deeper work. I want to stop pretending. These statements are pieces of identity. Over months and years, they become a pattern. The pattern becomes direction. Direction becomes a life that feels more like yours. There will be resistance. Expected. Old guilt may appear when you set boundaries. Old shame may appear when you want attention. Old fear may appear when you choose something unfamiliar. Old loyalty may appear when you outgrow family expectations. Old loneliness may appear when you stop chasing people who kept you emotionally hungry. Resistance does not always mean stop. Sometimes it means an old system is losing control. Move slowly enough to stay grounded, but honestly enough to keep moving. You do not need to become reckless to become real. A person can be careful and courageous, soft and firm, kind and boundaried, ambitious and rested, loving and self-respecting, open and discerning. Healing is not about replacing one extreme with another. It is about becoming whole enough that different parts of you can cooperate. The self is not found by murdering the parts you dislike. Your fear needs reassurance. Your anger needs direction. Your sadness needs comfort. Your desire needs permission. Your discipline needs kindness. Your tenderness needs protection. Your ambition needs values. Your rest needs legitimacy. When these parts are treated as enemies, life becomes internal warfare. When they are understood as members of the same inner family, integration begins. Integration is a quiet miracle. It means you do not have to choose between being strong and being human. You do not have to choose between loving others and respecting yourself. You do not have to choose between growth and gentleness. You do not have to choose between having a past and having a future. All of it can belong. Perhaps that is what you were looking for all along. Not a perfect identity, but a home inside yourself large enough to hold the truth. A home where your feelings are not intruders. A home where your needs are not evidence of weakness. A home where your dreams are not mocked before they are tested. A home where rest does not require justification. A home where the younger versions of you are not abandoned in order to look impressive.
When that inner home begins to form, the outside world changes too. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you stop needing every room to define you. Praise feels pleasant, but not intoxicating. Criticism may hurt, but it does not erase you. Rejection becomes painful, but not proof of worthlessness. Success becomes meaningful when aligned, but not your only evidence of existence. That is freedom. The world can respond, and you can remain in relationship with yourself. Maybe you still do not know exactly who you are. That is okay. A person is not a slogan. A soul is not a resume. Your identity does not need to fit into one perfect sentence tonight. Begin with this. You are the one who notices. The one who is tired of pretending. The one who feels the ache beneath the performance. The one who suspects there is more to life than being acceptable. The one who is still here, still listening, still capable of returning. That is not nothing. In fact, it may be the beginning. The question, who am I, does not have to be a threat. It can become an invitation. An invitation to stop living as a reaction. An invitation to stop confusing approval with belonging. An invitation to stop treating your sensitivity like a flaw. An invitation to build a life where your inner and outer worlds no longer feel like strangers. You do not need to find yourself in one dramatic moment. You can return in ordinary ones. In the pause before an automatic yes. In the breath before self-criticism. In the decision to rest without apology. In the courage to admit that something no longer fits. In the willingness to try something before you know whether it will become part of your future. In the quiet choice to stop calling your truth inconvenient. Little by little, a person emerges. Not the person everyone expected. Not the person fear designed. Not the person shame demanded. Someone more complex, more grounded, more alive. Someone who does not need to be understood by everyone in order to exist. Someone who can disappoint a role without betraying the soul. Someone who knows that being real is not the same as being perfect. Someone who can look at the old masks with compassion and still choose to take them off. One day, perhaps, the question will feel different. Who am I? Not a panic, not an accusation, not a desperate search through other people's opinions. A conversation, a relationship, a doorway.